Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. It was a Tuesday when I first suspected that my wife, Anna, wasn't just stressed about her upcoming finals. She was pursuing her second degree in psychology, a field she passionately claimed would help her make a real difference. But as the date of her critical exam approached, her anxiety seemed to devour her usual calm demeanor. "I just don't know if I can pass this one, Eric," she confessed one evening, her eyes scanning over her voluminous textbooks and notes scattered across the dining table. I had always prided myself on being the supportive husband, and I wasn't about to let her drown in her worries. "What if we try something unconventional to boost your confidence?" I suggested. Her eyes met mine, a blend of curiosity and exhaustion. "Like what?" she asked, her voice a mixture of hope and skepticism. I had read about micro-earpieces used in high-stress scenarios. "What about using an earpiece during your exam? I can be on the other end, feeding you information if you get stuck." The legality and ethics of it were murky, but at that moment, I was more concerned about her peace of mind. Surprisingly, she agreed. On the day of the exam, the plan was simple. I sat in our car outside the university, textbooks and notes spread out, ready to be her unseen savior. She fitted the tiny earpiece, hiding her fiery hair over her ear, and gave me a nervous smile before disappearing into the building. For the first 30 minutes, everything went smoothly. She whispered questions, and I supplied answers. Then, abruptly, her voice cut out. I tried to reach her, but there was no response. "Anna, can you hear me?" Nothing. Panicked, I fiddled with the equipment, checked connections, all while trying to maintain discretion. That's when I heard it, her voice, faint, talking to someone else. The microphone was still transmitting. "Just so stressed about this, I can't fail," she was saying. I heard a deeper, unfamiliar voice respond. "There's always a way to ensure success, Anna. Are you interested?" What followed was a conversation I'd never imagined I'd hear. My wife, the woman I loved, was negotiating her integrity away as casually as one might discuss the weather. The man was her professor, and he was suggesting an unthinkable trade: grades for favors. I sat in stunned silence, the receiver in my hand now a weapon that broadcasted her betrayal. It felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted. Betrayal seared through my veins like poison, and in that moment, a cold resolution settled over me. I would not let this go. Anna had made her choice, and I was going to make mine. As I drove away from the university, the pieces of my plan began to form. She wanted to ruin her own integrity. Fine. I would ensure the world saw her for who she truly was. Divorce was just the beginning. I would dismantle the life we had built together, piece by piece. In my rearview mirror, the university faded into the distance, along with the life I once knew and the woman I thought I had married. The road ahead was clear, and it led to retribution. The night was restless, filled with the echoes of betrayal that rang loud in my ears. After what I had heard, sleep was a foreign concept. Instead, I paced the length of our living room, every step a thunderous beat in the quiet symphony of our suburban home. The plan that had begun to form was now a screaming demand for action in my mind. When morning broke, Anna returned, her face flushed with a forced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I think it went well," she lied, hanging her coat and trying to brush past me to our bedroom. I stood firm, blocking her path, my expression hard as stone. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but cold. She paused, her smile faltering as she read the seriousness in my eyes. "What's wrong, Eric?" Her attempt at innocence was as brittle as thin ice. "Sit down," I directed, motioning to the sofa. She complied, her posture tense, her eyes wary. I sat opposite her, the space between us charged with unspoken accusations. "I know about the professor," I began, watching her closely. Her face drained of color, her eyes widening in shock, or perhaps guilt. I don't know what you're. Stop, I cut her off sharply. I heard everything, Anna. The earpiece wasn't broken, I heard every single word. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Then, slowly, tears began to pool in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. Only a burning, relentless need for retribution fueled me. Why? I asked, the single word a loaded gun. I was desperate, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't know what else to do. I thought it wouldn't matter if you didn't know. It matters, I said icily. It matters to me. Our trust, our marriage, you threw it all away for a grade. She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I'm sorry, Eric. I truly am. Can we try to get past this? No, I stated unequivocally. We're beyond that now. The rest of the day was a blur of activity. I contacted a lawyer, initiating the divorce proceedings with a cold efficiency. Meanwhile, Anna's pleas fell on deaf ears. My heart had hardened, the die was cast. But divorce was not the end of my plan, it was merely the opening move. I had a broader strategy to expose her deceit not just to our circle but to the entire academic community. Her reputation, her future in psychology, everything was fair game now. She had used deception as a tool, and now I would use exposure as a weapon. As the sun set, casting long shadows through our once shared home, I looked at the ruins of our relationship, at the woman who was once my everything. A part of me mourned what we had, but a stronger part was committed to the path I had chosen. Retribution was not just an option, it had become a necessity. I would ensure that by the end of this ordeal, Anna would understand the full extent of the consequences of her actions. This was not just a divorce, it was a declaration of war. The morning light was barely creeping through the blinds when I began my meticulous campaign against Anna. The house was silent, save for the clack of my keyboard as I drafted the first of many emails. My hands were steady, fueled by a cold resolve that had settled in my veins like ice. I started with the university. Anonymously tipping them off about academic dishonesty was a subtle move, but one that would start a ripple effect. I detailed everything, her arrangement with the professor, the date and time of the exam, everything needed to spark an investigation. I hit send, and the first domino fell. Later that day, I met with my lawyer, a stern woman named Marlene who had a reputation for being a shark in court. We sat in her office, the walls lined with books and accolades that spoke of her prowess. Eric, I've reviewed the information you provided, Marlene began, her tone businesslike. Divorce on grounds of infidelity is straightforward, but your plan to expose her academically is risky. You need to be prepared for backlash. I understand the risks, I assured her, my voice firm. I want to proceed. She shouldn't just get away with this. Marlene nodded, her expression unreadable. Very well. I'll file the papers for the divorce. As for the university, they will conduct their investigation once they receive your complaint. You should be prepared for them to contact you if they trace the tip back to you. Let them come, I said, a hard edge to my voice. I have nothing to hide. As I left her office, my phone vibrated with a new message. It was from Anna, a flurry of texts begging me to meet her, to talk things over. I stared at the screen, the words blurring into a mass of desperation. I typed a single response: there's nothing left to discuss. That evening, I went further. Using social media, I began to weave a narrative that hinted at Anna's deceit without outright accusations. Subtle posts about trust, integrity, and betrayal made their way onto my feed, garnering sympathetic responses and curious inquiries. I responded just vaguely enough to fan the flames of speculation without providing concrete details. Later, at a local coffee shop, I met with an old friend, Tom, who worked in the local news. We sat across from each other, the aroma of coffee mingling with the hum of quiet conversations around us. "Eric, what's going on?" Tom asked, concern lining his features. I leaned forward, my voice low. "I need a favor. It's about Anna. There's a story here, academic fraud, a professor involved. It's big." Tom's eyes widened slightly, his journalistic instincts kicking in. "If you're sure, I can look into it. Off the record, for now. If there's a real story, we'll go public. But, Eric, this will get messy." "I'm counting on it," I replied, a grim smile touching my lips. The gears were in motion, each move calculated with precision. With each passing hour, Anna's world was slowly closing in, tightened by the threads of my machinations. This was more than revenge, this was retribution, a way to balance the scales that she had so carelessly tipped. As I lay in bed that night, the silence was no longer oppressive. Instead, it was a canvas, painted with the echoes of deceit and the promise of justice. I was reshaping the narrative, one calculated move at a time. And as the darkness deepened, so did my resolve. The storm was just beginning. The air was thick with anticipation as the days turned into weeks. Each step of my plan had been meticulously executed, leaving no stone unturned, no shadow without scrutiny. The university's investigation into Anna had stirred a hornet's nest, igniting a scandal that rippled through the academic community and beyond. Newspapers, fueled by Tom's relentless reporting, blared headlines about corruption and deceit in higher education. Anna's world was crumbling, and I was the architect of her downfall. One chilly evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow that belied the storm brewing, I received a call from Marlene. Her voice was crisp, a stark contrast to the chaos she was about to report. "Eric, it's done. The divorce is finalized. Also, the university board has taken action. Anna has been expelled, and the professor is under suspension pending a full investigation. You've won." "Thank you, Marlene," I replied, my voice devoid of triumph. Winning had never felt so hollow. But there was one more act to play out. I had orchestrated a final meeting with Anna, under the guise of signing some remaining documents. We met at a quiet park, the trees bare, leaves crunching underfoot, a cold wind whispering secrets. Anna looked fragile, her eyes hollow, her frame shrouded in a coat much too large, as if trying to shield herself from the world. As she approached, I could see the toll the scandal had taken on her. "Eric, please," she started, her voice trembling, "I know I made a terrible mistake. But this, what you've done, I didn't deserve this." "You deserved every bit of it," I said coldly, the documents clutched in my hand. "You betrayed everything we had. You destroyed us." Her eyes filled with tears, a mix of sorrow and something darker, perhaps a dawning realization of the extent of my revenge. "What are you saying, Eric?" "I orchestrated everything. The tip to the university, the media frenzy, all of it. I wanted you to feel as betrayed as I did." Her face crumpled, and she took a step back, as if struck. "You ruined my life," she whispered. "No, Anna, you did that yourself when you decided to betray me. I just made sure everyone knew the kind of person they were dealing with." As she absorbed the weight of my words, her expression shifted from shock to a hardened resolve. "I may have made a mistake, Eric, but what you've done is monstrous. You think you've won, but you've lost so much more than you realize. You've lost yourself." With that, she turned and walked away, her figure slowly disappearing into the fading light. I watched her go, the documents still in my hand, unneeded now. The park was quiet, the silence settling around me like a cloak. In my quest for retribution, I had indeed lost parts of myself. The love I once felt had been replaced by a bitter satisfaction, and as I stood alone, the cost of my vengeance weighed heavily on me. The story ended not with reconciliation, but with mutual destruction. Anna and I were part of each other's past, forever altered by the deceit and revenge that had consumed us. As the stars blinked awake in the evening sky, I realized that some victories come at a price too steep to truly celebrate. And in the end, we both walked away, shattered by the hatred of betrayal, each carrying our wounds into the solitude of our new lives, apart and forever changed.